Hey, you, do you regret leaving the LDS Church? Yeah, me neither. In fact, 97% of the people who leave the LDS Church because they studied the history and they're leaving for personal moral reasons and they've done the research, 97% of that population reports being happier and never wanting to return back. So this video is not about regret that you left. It's about that feeling of regret of the things and the choices that you made and reconciling that regret after you've left. So if this is something that you've been dealing with, this video is for you. And before I get started, I just want to let you know that everything you need to connect with me, you can find down below. I do an Facebook support group for people who are empowering their minds and who are leaving the LDS Church. I also have some online books. I have online courses. I do private coaching. And I have this YouTube channel. So if nothing else, click subscribe and join me, and you'll get a couple videos a couple times a month, and it will help you on your journey. My whole goal is to help and support you during this transition in your life because it's epic and it's big. So let's talk about regret. Many people report feeling so much regret after leaving that has to do with the choices that they made when they were under the influence of indoctrination. Churches, especially toxic churches that have high demand, that are really wrapped around your thinking about an all or nothing, black and white, very orthodox religion, have the same effects. But it causes you to make choices, big life choices, based on that theology, choices about how many children to have, or whether or not to have children, or when to have children. It influences how you're going to spend your time and your talents. It influences choices that you're going to make about your education, about whether you're going to go to school, whether it's right to go to school, what school you're going to go to. It also influences choices about your marriage, about things that happen in your marriage, even your sex life, who you're going to marry, when you're going to marry, where you're going to marry, even what you're going to wear at your wedding. Also can influence, whether or not you're going to go on a mission and where you're going to spend that amount of time just right after high school graduation before you go on to further education. It can influence where you're going to live, how you're going to live, where you invest your money. It will influence what friends you're going to make and what clothes you're going to wear, what style you're going to put out there into the world. It influences every aspect of your life. And so it's very natural that once you leave that worldview that's had so much influence in your life, that you feel regret about some of the choices that you made and how they impacted your life. It is a very natural thing. Maybe you wouldn't have had so many children, and here you are, you still got 3 at home, and you really are ready to move on with your life. And you feel regret and shame and embarrassment about that, frustration about that. Maybe you would have gotten education as a woman. I wish I would have got an education. That's one of the things that I used to regret. I would have pursued a career. Instead, I had 5 children because I felt like that's what I should do. Now, I don't regret having any of my children or being a mother, but I would have made different choices had I not been operating under the influence of indoctrination. Also, you might have a struggle in who you chose as a marriage partner, or struggle and regret in staying in a marriage that is toxic and not healthy for you. So we also might have regret about where we spend our money, and we look at all the tithing that we invested in the church, and wouldn't it be nice to get a refund for that? And so there's a regret about how you spent your time and your focus and your energy. And it's not just that. It's just not those tangible things. It's your identity, your worth, and your self-esteem, and choices that affected your identity, worth, and your self-esteem. So one thing that I focus on with my clients is being able to embrace and investigate and honor all of our emotions. Our emotions are kind of the indicators, the informers, and even the educators of how we can get back to homeostasis and peace within our mind. And your whole journey leaving it's not just enough to wake up. We also have the duty, not the duty, but the opportunity, I'll call it, to grow up and to clean up so we can show up as the best version of ourselves. Waking up is not enough. Now it's time to discover, who are you? Who are you without the layers and filters of indoctrination? Who are you at the core? Who are you when you don't have an institution telling you who you are and what you should want and who you should be? And it can be pretty challenging. So listening to your emotions is a big part of that. Your emotions are the map back to yourself. And so honoring all of those emotions and learning how to allow them to come up and inform you is going to be an important part of your growing up and cleaning up. So the first thing to understand about the emotion of regret is that everyone deals with regret in and out of the church. Everybody makes choices when they're younger in life that really, if they would have made a different choice, they would have had a better outcome, or so that they feel that it would have been a better outcome. So here's the first thing that I would love for you to fully embrace. And that is that although it's undoubtedly true that your life would have been different had you not been operating under the influence of indoctrination, it's not true that your life would have been better. You don't know that. There is absolutely no way to know that. You may have made worse choices than you did while you were under the influence of the church. You may have made better ones. The truth is we always kind of look back and say, man, if I only knew then what I know now, I would have made different choices. But it's not fair for us to expect that younger version of ourselves to have operated from places that they didn't understand or know, from information that was not available to them at the time, or at least information that wasn't presented to them at the time. And to expect ourselves to make different choices, thinking that every poor choice that we made was an accident or a mistake, it develops the sister or the appendage of what is shame. This living under the illusion of, knowing what you know now, you would have been different, is causing you to live in the past. Let me put this another way. Expecting a 5-year-old to act like an adult is unfair. Expecting a 35-year-old who is indoctrinated and living in a paradigm and operating in a paradigm that doesn't know any different or better isn't any more fair to expect them to behave and act differently and make different choices than they did at that time. The choices that you're making today are based on what you know today. And the knowledge that you have 10 years from now would cause you to make different choices today. And so regret is going to be just in for the ride for the rest of your life. So our journey is to recognize when we are feeling those emotions of regret and to reconcile them and to remind ourselves, I didn't know better. Had I known better at the time, I would have chosen better. But give yourself tremendous compassion and grace. Give yourself that grace that is needed for that healing. Allow yourself to be who you were at the time. You were the best version of you at that time. And when you know better, you do better. And that's your journey, is developing you so that you can make the best choices you can at the time. So this regret is really synonymous with shame. And that shame keeps us in the cycles of victimhood. And it keeps us in trauma. In fact, we keep re-wounding ourselves when we look back and we have this regret. The church is no longer abusing us. We're not even a part of that, but we keep abusing ourselves and re-wounding ourselves by looking back and saying, what if only I would have done this and that, or darn that church, because they influenced me so heavily, I made this church and this church, if you want to go into blame. But it keeps us in trauma. And so there are three big challenges in life that we have to get over as we're transitioning, and that is shame, anger, and fear. And regret has to do with that aspect of shame. And that shame interferes with our ability to accept ourselves for who we are and to offer that grace and mercy to ourselves. And that shame also denies us access into the exploratory phase of self-awareness. We can only have so much self-awareness and only travel to the depths of self-awareness. That interruption will be shame. If we are constantly looking backward and shaming ourselves for what should have happened, we cannot progress forward. We can only go so far with our own self-awareness. So I have a couple tips, 5 tips for you to help you get over it. The first one is to listen to yourself talk. Part of growing up after leaving the church, this is my phrase, here it comes. It's not enough to wake up. You've also got to grow up and clean up so that you can show up and be the best version of yourself. And part of that growing up is becoming the observer of your mind and developing what is called like a metacognitive skill to observe what you're thinking and feeling at any given time. Not to just be participating in life, but to also become the participant and the observer. And when you can do that, you start to see the storylines that you're making up, and you can hear the shoulda, woulda, coulda. Whenever you hear the words, I should have done this, I could have done that, I would have done this had not this happened, that is you entertaining shame and rewounding yourself. And it's also an invitation. Don't shame yourself because you caught yourself shaming yourself. You have to learn to catch yourself and offer that compassion and grace and bring it to the present moment and say, but here I am now. And just like back then, when I was doing the best I knew then, I will do the best that I know now with what I have at the time. And so you're offering yourself that grace, and you bring it back to the future. That is in the past. Wishing you could change the past is using your mind for conjuring up dread and bad things in the future and maintaining your victimhood. So number 2 is make a list of the things that you would have done differently had you not been under the influence. And make it without shame and regret. Just, I would have done this or I would have done that, because that gives you a peek into who you really are behind and underneath all the indoctrination. So as you make the list of the things that you would have done differently, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for the choices that you made while you were under that influence. And access that part of you that understands what you can change. Let what you can't change go. Let it go and face forward. Look forward. And one of the techniques you can do this is number 3, and that is gratitude. Gratitude brings you to the present. When you have to think, when you use your faculties of your mind to think about what you're grateful for, it brings you into the present really fast, and it gets you out of that past and that regret and resentment. You're shifting your mind, you're taking control of your mind, and you're saying, instead of feeling resentment and regret, I now choose to feel gratitude. Make a list of the good choices that you made in the past and the happy things that came because of those choices. We get obsessed with the bad things that happen, and we forget all the happy, good things that happened while we were members of the church. And there are many of those. So be grateful that you're no longer under that spell, that you're free. You weren't ready to wake up any sooner than you did. I guess I should have made a more emphasis on that, because it's kind of a big deal. You couldn't have woke up any sooner than you did, because at that time you weren't asking the questions that you were asking when it was time for you to leave, when you were done with that worldview. So you weren't ready to wake up any sooner. You're ready to wake up now. You're woke up now. And you can face forward and go forward, focusing on the now and what's possible in the future. Accept your human path. Accept that poor choices are a part of our human condition. and poor choices are inevitable. That is the pathway to learning and gaining knowledge in this life. Everyone deals with regret, not just ex-members of the church. Everyone is dealing with regret. And so give yourself that human touch, that grace for being human. Trust that you are wiser as you're moving forward and you're doing the best that you know how. You know, it would be a really sad thing 5 years from now if you look back in the past and go, man, I took so long trying to get over leaving the church. I really regret not letting go of regret sooner. I hope that makes sense. The last thing I wanted to share with you is to become the master of your mind. And a lot of the courses that I teach and the empowerment that I want to infuse you with is to understand the workings of your mind. And so you're no longer giving the church your focus. So you're no longer giving them your power. And so that you have the integrity to face forward. Now, there's a reason that the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror in your car. If you drove your car according to what you were looking at in the rear view mirror, you would be in an accident really fast. And quite frankly, in life, it's the same way. When we're looking in the rear view mirror, we are looking at the past and we are absolutely ignoring what's possible for our future. And we are not being present. In the present is how we create what we're going to do in the future. So you owe it to yourself. You have made a tremendous sacrifice to leave the church. It would be such a sad thing for you to waste that sacrifice in living in cycles of shame and regret. It's an invitation for you to upgrade and to step up into the world and create your world and to get comfortable with having a sovereign mind and being able to move in a fashion that isn't encumbered by that indoctrination. My invitation to you is to transform your regrets into resilience. Again, give yourself that grace and just say, you know what, that's who I was back then. I always am doing the very best that I know how, given my circumstances, my skill, and what I know. And when you can offer yourself that grace and live in the present and be grateful for who you are and where you're going, things are going to shift for you rapidly. And when you catch yourself in that stage of regret, gently and ever so kindly redirect your mind to the forward future. I hope this was helpful for you. Again, I would love to have you subscribe to my channel and connect with me on Facebook and any other support items that I have below. Take care. Bye.